Hey, what is going on, you guys? It's your boy, I'm one for Orange, aka I'm one for Rige, and today I'll be doing another competitive analysis video on the Pokemon Planet T1 UU meta. And last time I did an analysis, we went over an underappreciated move in Protect. If you missed that video, there will be a link in the description, or you can check out my channel. It's available at any time. But today we'll be going over the Don Dada of the Pokemon Planet T1 UU metagame, the absolute menace that's controlling it right now. When you see people spreading honey nonstop in Deep Relic Castle, they're not looking for Baltoy. And if you can't tell by the Pokemon Showdown wallpaper or the title of this video, this Pokemon is none other than Krookodile. Krookodile is a very powerful Pokemon in the T1 UU metagame, and the purpose of this video is to try to show its strengths, weaknesses, some sets and replays to back it up, and leave you from the video thinking about how you can either play better against it or find ways to incorporate it on your team. Now, just like the last video, this style is very podcasty. I'm not going to be using over-the-top editing. I simply show usage stats and calcs. So only listening to the audio is quote-unquote required. So if you need to, go for your morning walk, your jog, have your coffee. If you're not looking at the visuals, I'm not offended at all. All I ask is that you take what you can from this video and listen to the information, as I do find that some of this is important and relevant and something I enjoy talking about. So thanks for watching, and let's get into it starting with the usage stats here. We have Krookodile at number 3. Krookodile has a 64% win rate, which is quite impressive for its usage, as well as 39% to that usage, which means it's used in roughly 4 out of 10 games, which is very good. And if you look around it, I mean, Gator obviously does have type advantages on Krook, Mandibuzz as well. But you'll find out during this video that Arcanine, Swellow, Crobat, Tentacruel, Rotom, Goodra, and even Mienshao, and especially Gardevoir. I wanted to only go over the top 10, but then I saw Gardevoir number 11. Yeah, all these actually have really bad matchups against the right Krook set. And knowing your set is important. I don't find the win rate stats to be as relevant for my argument here, but if you are interested and you want to take a look at them, pause the video, check them out, and let's get right into the sets. So firstly, the set that is taking the T1 UU meta by storm is the Scarf Krookodile set here. Now, there are 2 choices on the ability for your Scarf Krookodile. You can run Intimidate, and Intimidate gives your opponent a stat attack drop when the Krookodile switches in. So if you switch into an Arcanine using Extreme Speed, or you switch into a Crobat using U-Turn, not that you would really want to be switching into those moves, but it gives you a little bit of leverage to avoid taking too much damage. I can make an entire 1-hour video on the importance of chip moves and hazards in competitive Pokemon, but it would go to show that Intimidate minimalizing the amount of chip you take, not from hazards, but from moves, these small things can go a long way. That said, Moxie is a very relevant ability, and I'll demonstrate why Intimidate and Moxie are quite interchangeable in just a little bit. Anger Point is really useless. It's really these 2 abilities that we should be looking at for the video, and I will be showing some demonstrations of that. So this is the set that's really taking the entire T1 meta by storm. A Jolly Krookodile, max speed, max attack, and you have 5 seconds to guess. What do you think the other sets will be for Krookodile? Okay, well, every single one is actually going to be the same EV spread. So if you're going for a Krookodile right now while you watch this video, definitely encourage you to get a Jolly Krookodile and EV train it like this. So Earthquake, Knockoff are your 2 very spammable, what's called stab moves in this meta. Earthquake obviously being one of the most powerful moves, period. 100% accuracy, 100% power, hitting everything extremely hard except for flying types where they're immune to it. This move is incredible. But another incredible move in competitive is knockoff, which gets 1.5 times damage if the opponent holds an item, which is 97.5 power. Now, knockoff is very good in that regard because you can knock off the leftovers, the choice items, and just knocking off one of those items can completely change the pace of the battle. And it's coming off a very respectable and strong attack stat on top of the fact that it gets stabbed. So knockoff is great. While this move isn't going to be outright murdering anything that isn't weak to it, it does do a lot of damage, especially in the weaker threshold and bulk levels of the T1 tier on average, which we'll be getting into. Pursuit is just a fantastic move in my opinion on Scarf. If you need to make sure that a threat doesn't continue to switch in and out, as switching is a very popular mechanic in a lot of high-level Pokemon games, period, preventing switches is very nice, and Pursuit doubles in power if your opponent switches to 80 power, and this can lead you to do really cool things, like trap a Rotom that could be locked into the wrong move, an electric move. You can trap a Gardevoir if it's low, technically, but it's a little bit risky, as Pursuit is only doing around 30% to Gardevoir usually. It only gets empowered if it switches out. 31 to 37 if it stays in, switching out 62 to 73. And I do have to mention Hoopa as an honorable mention in a type of way, as Hoopa completely eliminates the 50-50 by being a Psychic Ghost type. Even if Hoopa stays in, it's absolutely fried to Pursuit. But you can see it's dead if it switches, it's dead if it stays in. So Pursuit is just very powerful for that. So, and then the last move is super flexible. So I have superpower here, and the reason for that is for other Krookodiles mainly. So we talked about which set you want to use, either Intimidate or Moxie. And while I have replays to demonstrate why Moxie is really good, we can look at calcs for Intimidate. So a Scarf Krook, or any Krook really with Intimidate, switching into a Krook, Earthquake is not a 2-hit KO, even with Rocks Up. Knockoff is doing pitiful damage. But if you run Superpower, and I have this set to twice over 2 turns, well, finally we do have a chance for a kill. And again, so even though it shows -1 here, the Showdown calc lets me to go over multiple turns. So once Superpower is doing over 55%, which means that it's calculating that the second time I use it, I'm going to have an additional attack drop, therefore give me this calc. So Superpower is pretty good. The other popular move is Stone Edge. And again, this is just the toss-up between Intimidate and Moxie. As you saw with this Krook calc specifically, Intimidate can come into handy very well, especially considering that a regular Earthquake is going to 2-hit KO a Krookodile without the Intimidate drop. But there are arguments to Moxie. So to show this argument, I'll start with my video here. Now I send in a Krook to clean up this team, and I'm fighting a Swellow here. And notably, first things first, I don't have Rocks Up this game. So to dissect this a bit, there is a good chance that the Swellow actually lives this knockoff with only a 6.3% chance to kill. Now, if you're watching this video and you don't know much about PPO, you're not promised 31 IVs on all your Pokemon. So let's say this Swellow is just a bit weaker, you can see how this calc could happen. But anyway, it's the end of the Clan Wars format and I just want to try to close out my win. So I end up making the decision to just go for it, and I end up getting the kill. Now, intimidating a Swellow doesn't actually do anything for me, as it's a special attacker. And with the next Pokemon he sends out, being a Gardevoir, here we go. Now, we have a Gardevoir out. And again, I just want to close out the tier, so I'm just going to click Knockoff. But looking at the calc for the Gardevoir, this knockoff shouldn't be killing. which is where Moxie could have easily came into play by getting this +1 boost and getting the boosted knockoff to make this Gardevoir dead. But unfortunately, I'm not running Moxie. But unfortunately for my opponent, he had a hasty Gardevoir or something, because as you'll see, it's just dead. So even though I didn't get punished in this instance, we can look at the replay and determine that, yeah, this probably shouldn't have happened. I probably should have died here. But yeah, this is a pretty good example of where things could have gone wrong for not being Moxie. So I think Moxie is just a fantastic ability as well. So we can't really make this Scarf Krook section so short after seeing some stuff like that. We have to dive into why it can be so good and why switch-ins are hard to find. So we have some speed tiers here that I have visually laid out. So if we look at the speed tiers, Krookodile fondly in the middle, right here at its respectable 92. This is faster than Timid Roserade, Adamant Entei, Timid Rotom Heat, all the way to and through the list, including the Scarf Gardevoir as you saw. But there's a few notable ones we have to talk about in terms of why it is so hard to switch into. And let's just start with the super obvious kind of speedy mons up here. I guess we can start with Crobat. So Crobat switching into a Scarf knockoff is not going to happen anytime soon. The first knockoff is going to be doing just over 55 damage. The second one is going to have a bit of a debuff here, so let me change the item to none. We have 57 plus 37. That is 94% damage at a minimum over 2 knockoffs from a Jolly Scarf Nature to a Crobat. So this is one of the strengths of Krookodile in that sense, as it's really hard to switch into, even though the damage isn't quite as severe that you're just going to be murdering the Crobat in one hit. It 2-hit KOs a lot, even with the attack debuff after the first knockoff, as you already knocked off the item, it reverts back to 65 power. But as you can see, since Crobat doesn't resist Dark, and to be honest with you, looking at the speed tiers, there's not much to resist Dark other than Mienshao, which Mienshao as well, it's a 50-50, right? Because Mienshao is pretty much dead to Earthquake in terms of PPO IVs. So that is why this set is so hard to switch into. The answer isn't just go into your speedier Pokemon and scare it out. Even if your Mienshao is hypothetically Scarf, it can die to an Earthquake. And yeah, all this, and then the other, fast Pokemon at the top of the tier are just too frail to take too many hits. Now, Scarf Krook doesn't come without its drawbacks though. Again, so the power seemed very apparent on the fast mons, but how does it do on some of the not so fast mons? So we're gonna start with 2 super slow mons, and then I'll show you another one at the end. Looking at Slowbro, you'll see that Slowbro actually is so fat, even though it is weak to knockoff. After you knock off its item, Slowbro can just slack off and heal. With 40.1 max here, and then having 59.8 max, 5%, that's actually 99.9 damage, which means that it technically always lives without Rocks Up. So Slowbro is fat as shit and just eats everything from Scarf Krookodile. I mean, with Knock being its strongest moves, and we'll have ways to counter this in other sets. But for the Scarf Krook, I would say this is quite the downfall. Actually, I have 2 more. If we look at Chestnut, obviously all this damage is pitiful. 12.6 to 15, 12.1 to 14.2 to just an Impish Chestnut. That is atrocious. Mandibuzz, if we just switch this up to have a bunch of defense, I don't know how Knockoff is ever doing 12% damage to it, but yeah, that's what the calc says. Stone Edge doing 33%, just sad. Just so sad. There's no way, even with Rocks Up, that you're going to be KOing this. Even if I switch this to Rocky Helmet. so it's not getting leftovers recovery. When you take into account the fact that your stone edges can miss, this calc suddenly just doesn't look that impressive, or it shouldn't. With rocks up plus a helmet, I don't know. It's not looking the best. And then finally, we actually also have Heracross, which doesn't really like getting its Flame Orb knocked off, but it can switch into Earthquake, Stone Edge, and Superpower from a Scarf Krook to some extent. These calcs really show that only with a high roll, you're going to be killing. So Heracross is a really cool switch-in, as Bug actually resists Earthquake, being ground. So some of this is really cool, but you can see where the damage is just not happening. And how do we get damage? Well, the answer to that is with a Choice Band. Again, another Jolly Krookodile set. This time we just have a band. So what do we give up? Well, we give up Revenge Killing Scarf Gardevoir. We give up Revenge Killing Spec Swellow. We give up doing some nice damage to Crobat over a few turns. And we really just give up overall the cleaning at the end of the game. But we gain a Breaker. And how substantial is this damage? I would say quite substantial. So now we don't really have switch-ins to this mon. And looking at the ones we had before. And I'm going to show you some fancy little tech options that you can run too. So we're back on Mandibuzz. And Stone Edge is now a 2-hit KO, even without rocks being up. That's really, really cool to be doing that much damage. Fantastic. And that's the Mandibuzz. Chestnut from the Banded set is still not taking much, but this is where I introduce the power of tech. You don't have to run one of these moves. It's hard. If you give up Stone Edge, your Mandibuzz matchup is in. If you give up Pursuit, this is honestly pretty bad for trapping in Rotoms from even a higher HP threshold, or trapping in Hoopa entirely. But you can run Aerial Ace, okay? And this is not a meme. This is dead serious, because we're going to look at a few of these calcs here. We have Chestnut, and we have Banded Aerial Ace. Now, this is still unimpressive damage in the big scheme of things. You look at this and you probably snicker. But it is a solid 2-hit KO, despite Chestnut being 4 times weak. And just to show how ass this damage really is, Scarf can't run Aerial Ace. That is not enough damage to KO it. It would have to be unbanned. So this is a really cool option that you can definitely think about. And then in terms of the Heracross calc, Heracross is definitely gone. And I think this damage is enough that you can consider running it on Scarf, but I really would only run it on bans just because of how good it is against Chestnut. Now, for Moveslot Syndrome like a bitch, because I want to talk about other moves now. Aerial Ace is good, Stone Edge is good, as you know, but you can actually also run Aqua Tail, as Hippo is in the tier. In Hippowdon, wow, that damage is a lot worse than I thought. I'm suing Clash. He told me this was good, but with rocks up and maybe some prior chip, you can break through it technically easier than running Earthquake or Knockoff. So I would say this is okay, to be honest. It's something to consider. And then finally, there is one other tech that I would consider. Actually, I have 2 more. My mind is all over the place thinking about this mon. You can run Beat Up. And this is not a jest also in my friend Eris, who loves Beat Up Krook. Beat Up is legit in this tier. I think it would probably be better on Band than Scarf. And the reason you would really want Beat Up is probably for Smeargle. Now, Beat Up calcs don't work, so you have to take my word for this. In a team of 6, the way Beat Up works is Beat Up does damage based on all the attack stats in your team, and there's a formula to decide this. It is a little confusing, but if you have a bunch of not so hard-hitting Pokemon on your team, Beat Up does less damage. If the power of your team is higher in terms of the attack stat, Beat Up does more damage, and each Pokemon that is alive hits it. Okay, that is the long, complicated answer. But it's a multi-hit move, is what you should get from that. And multi-hit moves are good because they can go through Sash. So Smeargle is dead, Kabutops is a common lead, and this runs weak armor with a focus Sash. And what weak armor does is every time you take hits from a physical move, your speed increases, but your defense gets dropped. So a move like Beat Up, which is a multi-hit physical move, just keeps doing more and more and more damage. Kabutops is dead from Beat Up. So Beat Up is quite cute in that regard to actually beat some of these suicide leads. It's not as good against stuff like Donphan and Fortress, but it's great against Kabutops, which can be hard for the tier to handle. So know your tech and make sure you use it in an appropriate spot. Don't just throw it on a team for no reason. Make sure it's doing something. And then the last move to mention, which is honestly probably more for the Scarf set here. Let me just go ahead and fix this one up for the paste in the description. You can run Toxic on the Scarf set. And I forgot about this one before, which is why I went back to it. I wouldn't run Toxic on Band, but I did forget about the option. And because you're just clicking this fourth move so little, Toxic to spread status on stuff like Alomomola or Sylveon. In the case of Sylveon, you probably force the Heal Bell. It's acceptable. So we have a few more Krook sets to go over. And this Krook set here is a Sash Krook set. And with the rise of Trick Room in T1, this Sash set is great. And you would think you kind of want to run something like max HP on this, you know, a set more like this perhaps. But I really do like just max attack and max speed, in all honesty. On all these sets, I think the knockoff damage is great. This set is good. It slows down faster leads that might taunt you early, such as Frostlass or Aerodactyl, and then you can either kill it with the second Rock Tomb or knockoff follow-up. You taunt Trick Room, and because you're Sash in any really bad unwinnable matchup where you don't want to click any of these moves, you can just click Rocks. And opening up with Intimidate is good. Opening up with a Krook period can be good because you bluff early Scarf knockoff on something like a Crobat lead, which can be kind of nice as they might be totally scared out or they might U-turn out on you. So knocking off that item and getting nice chip can be good. It's risky to click Rocks against the bat as it could taunt you, but this is a good set. And it's one of the few really good Sash leads aside from Kabutops, Metagross, Empoleon, and Krook being maybe the main four. Honorable mention somewhere in there for Smeargle, probably. So being able to utilize a Sash lead is great for HO teams. And I think this is actually one of the stronger Krook sets. So definitely something that should go into consideration during team building. The next set is if you're too scared to use too many locked users on your team. In this situation, maybe we have something like a Scarf Gardevoir already and a Spec Swellow, and maybe you're even using something like a Banded Emboar. But you also want the Krookodile, and you don't want to Scarf it. It's not your lead. You have a Donphan for that. Black Class's Krook is kind of legit. The damage calcs aren't that impressive in all kinds of things considered, and you don't really run a coverage move as you're not Life Orb, so your coverage moves aren't really boosted. But Black Class's Crunch actually lets you win the 1v1 versus Slowbro, and that is important to me. That calc is right. Okay, Crunch. I was looking at knockoff. I'm so sorry. Crunch here, 50.2%. I knew I looked at this earlier, and I got shocked when I saw 60.9. Crunch is barely a 2-hit KO on Black Class's Krook to Slowbro, so this is the kind of tech you might be able to run to handle Slowbro a bit better. And again, this is just if you don't want to be forced into being locked into moves, if that's your play style or how you want to do things. Black Glasses is still a legit set that you can consider. And then the last set is Helmet Krook. The honorable mention of this one is really just from kind of deterring rapid spinners. So the main thing with Sash Krook is you force up rocks guaranteed with the Sash, and you also handle things faster with Rock Tomb. But with Helmet Krook, you're trying to just deter the slow leads that when you get up rocks, your rocks can try to stay up. Because when Rapid Spin makes contact with a helmet user, you lose 1/8 of your health, or 1/6 of your health. So this can be really good to just quickly chip down those really fat defensive walls, specifically Fortress in this case. Donphan has a few options to deal with this Krook set here. Higher attack, Ice Shard. But yeah, it has some nice things going for it. And then I drop Rock Tomb here just because I'm not sashed. I like Earthquake plus knockoff, but you can definitely just revert this back to knockoff plus Rock Tomb. And I find all these sets to be extremely good. And just going back into the usage stats as we did at the beginning, the right Krook set can win you your game in just about every instance. You know, Arcanine, if it's locked into the wrong move, it can be kind of bad. You can Intimidate, drop it, and kill it with Earthquake if it's offensive. For Alligator, you're faster than Gator. As we saw in the speed tiers, you're 92. Gator is all the way down here at the bottom at 78. So not only can you come in and knock off a Life Orb, but you can also Intimidate drop it. You know, a guaranteed little series of plays on even a Dragon Dance Gator. Knocking off a Life Orb and getting the Intimidate drop. Awesome. Krook v Krook, you have Tech 4. Mandibuzz, you have Band, Swellow, Scarf, Crobat Scarf, Tentacruel, whatever. Rotom dies to 2 knockoffs, which is cool. Rotom Mo, let's just look at. Scarf. Yeah, 57 damage min, which means knockoff into knockoff has very similar odds to kill to the Crobat calc, which is very good. If you see you do something like 60 damage, go for the second one. If you see you got cucked a little bit and you only did the 57 damage on the first one, maybe don't click it again. I wish Showdown had ways to, you know, show knockoff over 2 turns so I didn't have to do none to show how much the second knockoff does. But there you go, you have options. Goodra has pitiful defense. I think it should die to 2 Earthquakes, even max HP builds on Scarf. You can't really click knockoff against this build because you really need the 100 damage. So this is a great example of where Earthquake is great. Shao, dead to Earthquake. Gardevoir, as we saw, Gardevoir really doesn't do well in this Krook meta. It's a great Pokemon, but with Krook all around, Snorlax can handle some stuff kind of well, but also it gets bullied to some extent. You know, Noivern, you have that here. And you can go through the rest of the list and just see that no matter what the set is, Krook has something. I'll end it off with a few things. We can look at Bandit's damage versus Seismitoad. This might be some of the less impressive damage, but that's actually not bad still. Good chance to 2-hit KO on Bandit Earthquake against the Seismitoad. You know, it's respectable. You have ways to handle your outs. So closing thoughts here. Krook is absolutely fantastic. Everything about this Pokemon just has ways to deal with everything it needs to be in the meta. Whether you choose to be Intimidate or Moxie is entirely up to you. Both have uses. As you'll see here in this closing battle, we do have a Moxie Krook here. It gets the attack boost, and because he's Moxie Krook, he can only go into Toxic Rogue here. There's no other option. Pig says Oink Oink 111 can go into. And yeah, Weak is able to plan around that and go into his Mandibuzz. If this had Brave Bird, it would be a different story for this Toxic Rogue, but you know, to each its own. Moxie, Intimidate, both great abilities. Just, yeah, go ahead, try out this Mon. If you like it, you hate it. A lot of people probably do hate it in T1, but you have ways to play around it. There's a few Pokemon that you can definitely tech in if you're losing to the Scarf set. And if you're losing to the Band set, then faster Pokemon will eventually prevail on that one. But there are options and walls to deal with the Scarf set, and it's a little harder to deal with Band in terms of immediate switch-ins, but you'll win with speed control in the end, as long as you keep the right Pokemon alive. So let me know what you think. I'll be doing more competitive breakdowns on the other T1 Mons in the future, but be sure to rate this positively or leave a comment if this was something you enjoyed and want to see more of. All pace of Krook will be in the description if you need them, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions whatsoever. Really appreciate all the support. I hope you guys have a fantastic week and catch you in the next video. Peace.